Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you. Yesterday, we finished our unit on drama and plays with Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. While we did a great job with that, we now need to shift gears and go into our next unit, which is poetry. Now, I understand some of us may not be poets. We may be fictional writers or dramatists and playwrights, but we need to understand how poetry figures into our world of literature. Today we're starting out with Lewis Carroll's The Jabberwocky. Alright, so can anyone tell me what they know about the Jabberwocky or Lewis Carroll? What we know about the Jabberwocky. It is a poem. It comes from Alice in Wonderland. It does not make sense. What we know about Lewis Carroll. He was a British author. He wrote Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. He lived in the 1800s. Alright, that was great, guys. You had great responses, and it's great to see what you guys know about Lewis Carroll and the Jabberwocky before we start studying him. So, if everyone can please take out their Lewis Carroll Alice's Adventures in Wonderland book, we will begin reading the Jabberwocky out loud in class. The Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toads did gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome rats outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird, and shun the Flaminius Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the maxim foe he sought, and so he rested by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through, the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galoofing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, callooh, callay, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toads did gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome rats outgrabe. Now that we've finished reading the poem, I see confusion out there. Don't worry, we're going to clear this up by looking at the grammar of the first stanza that starts off with 'twas brillig. Yes, we're going to be looking at nouns, verbs, and adjectives so that we, as readers, can understand what Carroll is trying to tell us with this poem. Breaking down the grammar. Nouns. Brillig, a time of day. Toves, a sort of animal. Wabe, a place. Borogoves, plants or animals. Rats, animals. Adjectives. Slithy could mean slippery or slithering. Mimsy, which could mean happy, confused, or brave. Mome, which could mean small, cold, or meek. The verbs. Gyre, which could mean to spin, to circle around. Gimble, which could mean to dance, to run, or to skip. Outgrabe, which could mean to come out, to hide, or to have fun. Now that we have identified the grammar of this poem, the nouns, the adjectives, and the verbs, I want each and every one of you to try and interpret in your own words what Carroll means by this first stanza. Go ahead, take about 10 minutes And just talk it out, amongst your groups about what you think he's trying to say. Then after 10 minutes, we will regroup and present our findings.
Textual evidence. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the boa groves, and the momraths outgrabe. A student's interpretation. It was 2 o'clock, and the slithering toads were spinning and running in the waves. All happy were the tall trees, and the small birds came out.
Alright, now that we've gone over the grammar of the poem, we're going to break off into small groups and discuss what Carol is trying to tell us as readers. Remember, this poem was written in the 1800s, so try your best to think back to that time. That was in the Victorian era of England. You guys will have 10 minutes for this small discussion. Please make sure that someone in your group is writing down all of the points you guys come up with. We're going to share those with the class and go over them in a larger class discussion.
Students' responses. Carol used made-up words to create his own world. This poem establishes a history for this world. It tells the reader of the animals and the plants that can be found in this world. The poem is short, so readers do not get bored. It makes the readers determine their own interpretation.
Alright, those were great responses, guys. So, we're now moving into our daily activity. Since we're starting poetry, guys, you guessed it, we're going to be writing some poems this unit. So right now, I want you to take about 15 to 20 minutes and each come up with your own version of this poem. I want you to think about the structure, the words you will use. Yes, it is okay in this poem to make up as many words as you want, but try to remember Carol's poem structure. In the first stanza, we broke it down to nouns, adjectives, and verbs. So I want you guys to keep that in mind as you're writing your own poems. Make sure that we are able as a class, because we are going to read them, that we are able to understand your story that you are trying to tell us. Once we have gone over everyone's poems, we are going to break off once again in our small groups, and I want everyone to try and interpret someone else's poem. Alright? Let's go.
Student's poem. Twere dissent, and the cractious tibbles did flump and fluple in the brate. All kinsy were the hamables, and the weropods detrate.
Alright, everyone. Those were wonderful responses and wonderful interpretations. Remember, with poetry, there is no right answer. It's about a person's interpretation of the words. Your homework tonight, yes, we still have homework in poem in poetry unit, will be to read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. Now I understand, we're doing poetry. So you're reading the novels and looking specifically for all the instances of poetry within these novels. Your homework is to take down notes of why Lewis Carroll might have put these poems in at those times. Don't forget, try to look at the characters that are speaking these poems. Is it the same type of character all the time? Or does he give his poems to random characters? Does the poem tell a story, like with what we saw with the Jabberwocky? Or does it seem better if it was sung to music? These are all thoughts I want you guys to be thinking of, and points I want you to be writing down when you're reading these two books. Tomorrow, make sure to bring them in, and we will continue our unit on poetry and continue working with Lewis Carroll's poems. As a review of the lesson, I have tried to make sure that I have hit on Bloom's taxonomy, especially for poetry. I believe that the 6 levels of the pyramid will help with the students' understanding of poetry. The 6 levels of Bloom's taxonomy that I've hit upon are as follows.
Bloom's taxonomy lesson objectives. Level 1, knowledge. recalling previous knowledge about the poem. Level 2, comprehension, discussions of the poem. Level 3, application, inferring the meaning of the poem. Level 4, analysis, breaking down the grammar. Level 5, synthesis, creating your own version of the Jabberwocky. Level 6, evaluation, interpreting classmate poems.